On this week's episode of the WNP podcast, are you getting downs with this wide receiver class? Stay tuned. Episode 165 of the We're Not Professionals podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mitchelson, and joining me today, as always, my co-host, Chase Crawshaw. Chase, how are you?
I am doing swell, except for that intro. Episode 165 really bugged me. But otherwise, I'm chilling. How are you?
You always get bugged by little things because you're just an angry little boy.
Sure, that's what it is. You poopy head.
I'm doing fantastic because this is the third straight episode where I just get to rip you for your horrible takes and my fantastic takes. So it's going to be another great episode covering wide receivers in this one. For those of you that don't remember, our last wide receiver rankings that we did last year, I had Rookie of the Year, Garrett Wilson, as my 1. Chase had him as his 10. So, I mean, a little bit different.
Yeah, that's my 10.
Or 8.
I definitely didn't have him as my 10. I don't know what I actually had. Is 8 the real number?
Yeah, I remember you had him last. I don't remember if we did 8 or 10, but you had him.
I think we had him 8 as pass catchers, not just receivers.
No. We did them separately. We did a pass catchers episode, but we did them separately.
I'm going to have to go back and look.
Plus,
you seem
what tight ends last year would have beat out Garrett Wilson? Exactly.
What's his name from the Bucks? I don't remember who it is.
Cade Otton?
Yeah, Cade Otton, baby.
You had Cade Otton as your tight end 5.
Yeah, it's a meme. Relax, it's a joke.
So, just prepping you guys so you know who's got the real talent and evaluating wide receivers over here. But no, it's going to be a good episode. Chase, we're going over our top 10 wide receivers in the 2023 NFL draft class. I think before we even talk about the class as a whole, let's get into some other stuff. So first off, you got a little report from Jeremy Fowler recently that Derek Carr, apparently the preference for him would be the New York Jets. And as a Garrett Wilson owner in Dynasty football, would absolutely love that.
I do think it's a good fit. It's a team that I think has everything in place, just minus a quarterback, because Zach Wilson's just horrendous. I thought it was a terrible draft pick at the time. Shocker, it's been a terrible draft pick. So outside of that, they really just need a quarterback, and Derek Carr, I think, is a good enough quarterback to win within the NFL. I think the Raiders were wrong for treating him the way they did, and shout out to him for being able to kind of screw them over and be like, nah, I'm not, waiving my no-trade clause for you. I'm not waiving my salary for you. You guys can kick rocks. So he gets to make, his guaranteed money still. They take on a cap it. Now he gets to kind of choose where he wants to go based on his offers. And I think the Jets would really be a great fit because everything, for the most part, is around him. I don't think he has to worry about, trying to feed lesser targets like he might have if he were to go to like Houston at the moment. So it just seems like a good fit.
Yeah, I think the only problem with that situation would be you're playing in the AFC. You got to go up against Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Herbert, all these guys, which he's not, unknown to that. He's used to being in the AFC, but if you're going elsewhere, I feel like an NFC team might be a little bit more favorable at this point. But overall, when you look at the Jets, they're close to a complete team. The defense has been really solid. Offensive line needs to get a little bit better, but when you look at their weapons, that's solid. When you look at the running back with Breece Hall, he's fantastic. So I think the Jets, they are right there. They're right on that cusp. And I think a quarterback that is actually competent, like Derek Carr is, that could really excel them, push them into that playoff picture.
Yeah, for sure. And I can understand the argument, the AFC thing, but as you said, he's already there before. And, what's it even worth winning if you're not going to beat out Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes? Why would you want an easy track from the NFC unless you're the Lions, because then they're the GOATs. But yeah, then that'd be the thing. He would have to play against the Lions. And okay, let's be honest, like the undefeated Lions next year are going to stomp them. So he's like, I got to stay away from that. And he goes to the Jets.
Undefeated Lions with their newly drafted. Cool.
Are you making a prediction?
Here? I'm questioning you. Are they
running back?
New running back. Oh, okay.
Running back.
New running back.
He's going to be a quarterback, running back, cornerback mix.
Oh, so you're taking Anthony
Yeah.
Richardson because he's a running
basically.
back.
Yeah.
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 All right. Draft combine was
Yeah.
this weekend. Yours truly got to see it in person. Chase, we missed you out here. Would have loved to have you.
Yeah, it would have been cool if I knew you were going, and could have maybe got a pass, and I could have just maybe driven down after my festivities on Friday. But no, I didn't get the notification.
Well, that's crazy because last Sunday I texted the group chat and said going to the combine, but
It was like Tuesday. You said it.
whoa, okay, so you had a good 3-day preference.
Yeah, I had a 3-day preference. Yeah, I had a nice 3-day preference. I didn't know how much they cost. I didn't know what I had to do. I was like, this is a lot of work. Whatever.
It was free, baby, free 99. It was awesome.
Ooh, that's nifty.
It's pretty cool to go see. I think that it's a valuable experience, but I think it's more of an experience for like a family, or maybe if like all the boys went and we're just grabbing beers, you awesome them back, and then that could be a good time too. My dad and I went. It was a fun time, but I would say overall, like, it's not one of those where if you really want to analyze these players, you're not going to be able to do that there. It's going to be easier on TV because you actually get to see them up close. They only have about 30% of Lucas Oil available for the public. The other 70% taped off for players and GMs and everything. So you couldn't really get down close to the field. And it was a little tough to see, but there were festivities happening right outside of Lucas Oil for kids, 40-yard dash, a bench press type of thing. And we don't think it was real plates, but it was a cool overall time. Good experience.
Is that where you're able to rip out 60 of them?
I didn't actually go on it. I didn't want to impress too hard,
Okay. Yeah, you weren't ready to get drafted yet. You want to go back when you were in college.
Exactly.
Okay, fair enough.
But some of the coolest things come out of the combine, so let's talk about a couple of them, Chase. First up, we got to talk about Anthony Richardson. Is he the new QB1? I see a lot of people talking about it. This guy absolutely showed out, coming in at 6'4", 244, ginormous. He records an official 4.43 40. He breaks the vertical record for quarterbacks, and he looks great passing the ball deep as well.
Yeah, he had a great day. I mean, he did everything he needed to do, just breaking so many records and looking as strong as he did. And there's arguments to be had that he's moving up the draft boards. He moved up mine. I got him as my QB2 now, just strictly based on upside. He looked so good there, and it really is all there, except for the small sample size and the consistency really needs to improve. So if those things can happen, this guy could really have a ton of success at the NFL level. And to argue that he's QB1, I think he's going to be some teams QB1 at least. And I think this is where a team like maybe the Buccaneers could do something good here. Maybe they can trade a haul. They could sign Jimmy Garoppolo in the offseason, so they can get like a year of Anthony Richardson backing up to Jimmy Garoppolo, become more of a pro, become more of a passer, while he still maintains the athletic ability. And then year 2, he's just ready to rip. It'd be tough taking a guy, potentially first, second, third, fourth overall and have him not play. But at the end of the day, it's about doing what's best for your franchise and investing into a player, and that would be a great investment.
Yeah. I mean, there's the potential that this guy could go just sky high, number 1 overall quarterback in the league type of level, like up there with the likes of Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, all those guys. So it'd be very exciting to see him go to a really good situation. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, we saw some good performances out of like Nolan Smith, Christian Gonzalez, some other guys in there that we'll be talking about in future episodes when we take a look at our edge class, our defensive tackle class, our linebackers, our defensive backs. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But out of the running backs, who are a couple of guys that really caught your eye, maybe surprised you compared to watching them on film, or guys that just reassured you that, yeah, this is the guy?
So first, I'll say, Devon Achane, he really looked better than I saw in film. Like his footwork just looked really strong today. So he's going to end up moving my draft board a little bit once I make the tweaks to his grade. Outside of him, I thought Deuce Vaughn, even though he weighed in or measured in at shorter than expected, he weighed in at higher than expected. Jeez, I'm freaking switching my words up here. But doing all the drills, I wish he ran the 40 just to see what he did. But doing all the drills, like his footwork was impeccable. His catching ability was great. So if the team can find a Darren Sproles role for him, I think he's going to have a ton of success at the NFL level. Tyjae Spears looked really good. He's probably made himself the most money out of all running backs the last 6 weeks. Like he's pretty much, I think, locked himself into a day 2 pick because he just looks incredible. And again, his footwork looked really strong today. He was catching passes. It was a good day for the running backs. There was a couple guys that underwhelmed, but it was good to see also Bijan, crack that 4.5s and get into the 4.4s, that 4.46 that he had. I think there are a lot of guys really kind of made the case that this is such a good running back class.
Yeah, you looked up and down the board. There was only 1 or 2 guys that I was really looking at like, not sure, he can do it at that next level, but a lot of the guys really impressed. One guy that I think looked better than I expected was Tank Bigsby. And I think that's where it comes into play, how we talked about it last week. I thought he kind of had, levels to his game. When he was at that very top level, he looked extremely good, but we didn't always get to see that. I felt today he performed better than the likes of Zach Charbonnet, who Charbonnet obviously gets a lot of rightfully so respect, hype, but Tank surprised me a little bit with the athleticism that he showed.
Yeah, man, he looked awesome. The footwork looked good. We all know that he is a good all around runner. He's not necessarily pure power. He's not necessarily pure speed, pure agility, but he just showcased that for a hater like you, he had more to offer. So I was happy to see him go the way he did because I am someone who's always been a big supporter of Tank Bigsby. I think he's got the ability to be a number 1 running back on the team. So I was happy to see him kind of have the day that he did.
Well, I got to say, shout out Johnny Ream because he's the true supporter of Tank Bigsby. At one point, his dynasty team was Tank for Tank. So true Tank supporter right there, Johnny Ream, not you, Chase. Sorry.
It's because yours was Tank for Bijan, so he's like, I gotta do my own.
It was bust for Bijan.
Bust for Bijan. My bad. My bad.
All right, Chase. Well, let's hop into our 2023 NFL Draft wide receiver rankings. Like I said, we're going to go through a top 10. Before we hit that top 10, Chase, what do you think about the class overall? You think it's a really strong wide receiver class? You think it's the weakest one we've seen in the history of the NFL Draft? Where do you see it?
So I think it's still solid. There's going to be good NFLers that come out of it, but it's definitely underwhelming compared to some previous years. I still have some guys that are graded pretty high, but when it comes to the day 2 type guys, it drops off pretty quickly for me. Normally receivers, there's a lot of them needed on the team. So you see them fly off the first, second, third round, and then obviously throughout the rest of the draft too. But I think that there's just much better values, around the board at different positions than spending, too much on these day 2 level guys. So it's a little underwhelming, I guess, in that aspect.
Yeah, overall, I think it's pretty weak. I would even say that the top end of the draft class isn't even as talented as the last couple that we've seen. I think it's going to be sitting around that same range as I think it was the 2015 class with Laquan Treadwell and Corey Coleman. Maybe that was 2014.
I think it was 2014.
There's going to be talent that comes out of this draft class, but I think overall, when you're looking at the level of prospects we're getting in this wide receiver class, it's definitely lower than the last couple. And there's only a couple of guys that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and I can definitely get that. I would say that I'm super excited for, maybe 5 of them total that there's a couple guys that are great where I expect them. So I'm not crazy excited, but even a couple guys where I did end up where I expected them, I'm excited for. And then a couple, later names that surprised me over the last few days of scouting, surprised me at the combine. There's one name specifically I'm really excited for.
All right, Chase, well, let's just roll through it. Give me your top 10. I'll do mine. Then we'll start discussing.
All right. Number 1, I have Jackson Smith-Njigba out of Ohio State. Number 2, I have Jordan Addison out of frickin' USC. I almost said Pitt. Number 3, Quentin Johnson out of TCU. Number 4, Jalin Hyatt out of Tennessee. Number 5, Kayshon Boutte out of LSU. Number 6, Tank Dell out of Houston. Number 7, I got to make sure I say it right. It's Dontavion. Yeah, it's Dontavion Wicks out of Virginia. Number 8, Zay Flowers out of BC. Number 9, I can't do it. I just forgot his first name for a second. Bryce Ford Wheaton out of WVU. And then number 10. Did you say we're doing 10? I don't remember what you said. 10. Okay, I wanted to make sure. Number 10, Xavier Hutchinson out of Iowa State.
All right, bit of a different list here for the two of us. It starts pretty similar, though. Number 1, I've got Jackson Smith-Njigba out of Ohio State, Jordan Addison out of USC, Quentin Johnston out of TCU. Number 4, I go Zay Flowers out of Boston College, Xavier Hutchinson out of Iowa State. I got Rashee Rice out of SMU as my number 6. Kayshon Boutte, LSU, number 7.
It's pronounced booty, by the way.
Boutte. Jalin Hyatt, Tennessee, coming in at number 8. Number 9, Jaden Reed out of Michigan State. Gotta shout out the alum there.
Wow.
And finally, number 10, Josh Downs out of North Carolina.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think that we obviously have different lists, but I think once we get to the analysis, it might not be so different. I think one guy will be. You had Jalin Hyatt at 4. I had him down sitting at number 8. But I think overall it might be similar analysis on these guys, just different grades. Let's start with Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's both our 1s. This guy we've known for a while. He's been a fantastic wide receiver. Unfortunately, due to hamstring, we couldn't see him compete in his junior season outside of the very first game where I don't think he got a ton of targets. But then he shows up at the combine and has one of the best combine performances we've seen all weekend.
Yeah, he did great. He really just everything improved his draft stock. It would have been awesome to see him play this year because I think he would have put up some really good numbers that would have just solidified him as the 101 of wide receivers, not even close. So to not have that film definitely hurt, but I think he really improves the stock here, and it would be shocking to see him, not be at least a top 2 receiver drafted in this class.
Yeah, I just think that outside of the speed, which I think that he's got that short area quickness that you like to see out of wide receivers, but doesn't necessarily have the long speed. Just such good hands. The route running is spectacular. The stuff he does after the catch is really good. Reminds me a lot of Garrett Wilson. Now, I thought Garrett Wilson did it at a higher level when they were at Ohio State, but both fantastic players. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba is the better route runner of those two if you're comparing them, and I think he's also a plus when it comes to blocking. So this guy's just really good. But with that being said, when you look at my grading scale, he's not a top 20 pick for me.
Well, that's disappointing because I have him as a top 16 pick. So first half of the first round. And it is because just, the athleticism is going to hinder him a little bit. But just his football ability, it's like Amon-Ra St. Brown, where we had that guy ranked high. We had him ranked, both in our top 8. I think both in our top 5 maybe. And he had gone to the 4th round and has been one of the best receivers in the league since entering. It's the same type of thing with JSN. He's not some elite athlete, but he's just going to win off of sheer will and football ability. Like, he's going to work on the outside. He's going to work on the inside. I think he's pretty scheme versatile. I don't think you have to really worry because whatever you need to do, he's just going to be able to do it. I don't see how anyone else could see any of these other receivers being wide receiver 1.
I tend to agree. I think the next guy is pretty good as well. But Chase, you make a great point. We're on it with Amon-Ra St. Brown. We're on it with Justin Herbert. I'm just confused. Why are we still doing a podcast for 40 subscribers rather than making 40 mil as scouts in the NFL?
Because we do it for the love of the game, not for the money.
Oh, true. That's a good point. All right, Jordan Addison, both are number 2. This is a guy who won the Biletnikoff with Pittsburgh in his final year. That was his sophomore year. Then he transfers over to USC. He gets banged up a little bit towards the end of the season, but still had a pretty productive season. I think one of the most important things for me with Jordan Addison was this weekend he showed he does have some speed by running a sub 4.5 40.
Yeah, that's something that really helped his case for me too. His speed on top of his agility, he's just a really great short to intermediate route type guy, and he can take the top off if needed. I think that speed is gonna help. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. What he ran, this weekend, it's gonna kind of help, make that case for a team that's looking to spend some capital on him. Had some great numbers in college. He mentioned he wanted to be going to Pittsburgh. He wanted to be paired up with Kenny Pickett, get back in the Pennsylvania area. I think that might be actually a solid fit if they're going to move on from Deontay Johnson, especially because he's just got great yak ability. He's willing to block. I just think he's just a very quality receiver. I still think JSN's, the higher level when it comes to this qualityness, but he's just good with a little more athleticism.
Yeah, I think I see Jordan Addison similar to a Tyler Boyd with much higher athleticism. Tyler Boyd, not the fastest guy, but I think Jordan Addison, he does have that speed. He's got better ability after the catch as well, but when it comes to his routes and his hands, he's right there, I think, with Tyler Boyd. He's just so talented in those aspects. So excited to see that he's top 2 for you, because last year when we were talking about it, there was a little bit of concern from your side.
Yeah, there was, and I thought it was just kind of inflated numbers being not like the only option really in a Pitt offense. Like, who else are you going to throw the ball to? Like, he was just better than the rest, and I thought still someone that could be a good NFL player, but I want to see him do it elsewhere. And yeah, he gets to play with a better quarterback, but he goes and plays in a completely different offense with better weapons, and he still plays really well. Kind of really helps solidify things for me.
All right, next up, our number 3, Quentin Johnston out of TCU. This is the size receiver, at least the top receiver that has that prototypical size that NFL teams like to see. He's an interesting case because I think that there's times where he's not necessarily the best looking player, and then there's times where he just completely takes over the ball game.
Yeah, and like when you first started watching, we saw him at a kind of a different level. I really liked his game. I think he's, that frame combines with good speed, and I thought he was a better catcher than you did when we first kind of talked about him. I know you've maybe changed a little bit on that, but the inconsistency, sure, I can somewhat understand it, but he does have that true, X receiver build. He has that number 1 receiver build on top of having a good athletic profile. Really what it comes down to for me, though, just the route tree was so minimal at TCU, and you would have liked to see him maybe be a little more productive with that size and the team being as well, being as good as they were. So those kind of two things really bring him down for me. If he ran a full route tree at that TCU, TCU offense, I think he might be like a top 5 pick, but I don't know if he can really do that extremely well at the NFL level.
Yeah. And most of my notes are pretty negative on Quentin Johnston. And I think he was this high just athletically based, I guess I should say, before combine. And I mean, the guy's an athletic freak. You love to see it. His vert was crazy. He was jumping out of Lucas Oil. But I had a lot of talk about he's a body catcher. He limits his catch radius because he's a body catcher. I also had questions about endurance or effort issues. It felt like anytime the play was going to the other side of the field, he didn't really do much. And I wasn't sure what all that was about. Then you see him at the combine, and that body catching really got broken down a little bit, because in all of the tests that he was going through, all the drills that he was running through, he was using his hands a lot more, really proving that he can catch the ball with his hands. He's not strictly a body catcher, and so that moved him up a little bit as well. I think the guy's got tremendous upside. I'm interested to see where he goes and how he's utilized, but I'm a fan, and he is the last wide receiver on my list that gets a first-round grade. All of these guys, though, sitting between that 20 and 32 range.
I've got one more that just squeaks in, but final point on Quentin Johnston. If he can develop a little more and just become get that more diverse route tree and adjust the NFL quick, I think if he can be used in a similar role to what Mike Evans has been used for in the Bucs, I think he can have a lot of success.
Yeah. All right, let's now talk about Jalin Hyatt. He is your number 4. What did you see about Hyatt that you loved?
Really, it comes down to a good combination of his size and weight. It's nothing like elite, but weight compared to his height, I think, is very solid. And then the athleticism, the athletic profile, his willingness to block, all that, it's really special. He's great with the ball in his hands. He is he gets the ball in his hands, I should say, and he doesn't really drop. I think he's got a very diverse and safe level of catches throughout his college career, or mostly this last season. He kind of broke out. Cedric Tillman was kind of expected to be the guy, but things went not working out for Tillman, and then Jalin Hyatt stepped up and just dominated. I can understand the concerns of a late kind of career breakout in college, but Jalin Hyatt, he's just such a natural athlete, and I would say he was probably the most efficient wide receiver in the country this year. If you look at QBR, targeting receivers, he was number 1. So he's just got someone about him. I think that this 1 year is kind of sample size. Really, first time he gets his opportunity, breaking out so hard. I think he can even elevate that to the next level.
Yeah. I don't remember the exact word you used. I think you said special. I don't know if he's a special athlete, if I'm being honest. Everyone was telling me that he was going to be challenging that 40-yard dash number. And I know 40-yard dash isn't everything. But coming in at a 4.41 40 is not anything crazy. You know, Tyreek Hill blows that out of the water. But I think overall, speed is great. That's what I listed it as. Great speed. I think he's got great release. His hands surprised me. I thought he had a lot better hands than I expected. One thing that I wish I saw more of, we just didn't because of the way the Tennessee's offense worked out, was I wanted to see what he could do after the catch more. Could he be a yak guy? Could he break tackles? And we just didn't see it a lot because they would just send him on go routes. Hendon Hooker would hit him perfectly, and it'd be a touchdown, which is fantastic because you saw Jalin Hyatt's speed in game. He beat the corners, but it was college level corners. And at the next level, is he going to be able to beat everyone that's, going up against him when he's running a 4.4? I don't know. So I think overall he's a very good speedster, and I have a second round grade on him, but I just don't see him as special.
A 4.4 like speed just it still puts him at the very top end of NFL wide receivers. So to say that it's like putting him as slow, it's not fair because like it still is a very good number. And when you look at him on the football field playing in the game, like he looks faster than that. A lot of guys kind of lose speed because they're more focused on the football game. They're in their padding, so it's a little different. Where Jalin Hyatt, it's the same to him regardless. So I disagree in that aspect. And when it comes to that, that rack yak ability, sure, like that's fine. You didn't get to see a ton of it, but he has all that, skill. Like he has the skill set, I should say, the skill set in order to have success in that role. So I think so long as someone gives him the opportunity to do that, I think he's going to flourish.
And hey, no one said he was slow. I said he's got great speed.
But you said he doesn't have enough speed to beat some of the NFL defensive backs, you weenie.
Which is true. There's a lot of very speedy NFL defensive backs. We're looking at a day and age right now where if you want to be named, one of those top speedsters, I guarantee whatever team Jalin Hyatt goes to, I guarantee there's going to be a guy faster because we are seeing so many 4.3s right now. And we've seen quite a few 4.2s, obviously not as much. 4.2 is absolutely insane, but guys that are sneaking in that 4.29, 4.28 range, there's guys there too. So I think that no matter where Hyatt goes, I think there's probably a guy there that runs in that 4.3s.
Maybe there is, but here's the thing. A lot of those types of players had not worked out in the NFL. Like, look at John Ross, perfect example. So fast, just not that good of a receiver. There's a lot of guys the teams have overdrafted because of their speed. And it's changing nowadays where these speed receivers have legitimate talent. But I think he's just I think he's got more talent than a lot of these speed guys have in the last few years, especially. So sure, somebody might have more speed than him in an offense, but he's going to have a significantly better combination of speed and ability.
Jalin Hyatt, say hi to Jalen Reagor.
Not even close.
Yeah, we're not going to agree on Jalin Hyatt. I think differently, and you do as well. That's completely fine.
You can be wrong. It's fine. It's fine.
Now you want to talk about a guy who is low 4.4s that has all of that ability, has that rack, has that yak, has insane route running. Let's talk about Zay Flowers. So twitchy. I didn't think he had as much lawn speed on game film. The 40-yard dash, he looked fantastic. But I think overall, this guy's just a playmaker. When he has the ball in his hands, he's fantastic. Super shifty wide receiver that becomes a running back when he gets the ball in his hands. Great vision, can make you miss. I loved his routes, loved his hands. He doesn't have, that unreal, 60-yard, top-end speed, in my opinion. But he's got that short area quickness like we were talking about with JSN, and I think even more than JSN does.
Yeah, and I had him as my wide receiver 8, but it's not because I don't like him. I've still got him as a
you hate him?
Third round guy.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of guys in my 4 through 9 range are pretty similar. They're all day 2 type grades. And I'd have no problem with him going earlier in day 2 just because I do think he is a very versatile receiver. He lined up in the backfield, he ran routes on the backfield, and looked good doing it. Every once in a while, get some design touches and would have damage, make damage with it. I think if he can add a little bit of size, maybe add a little bit of weight, even though he's not going to grow. But if he could add just a little bit of weight to maintain his his power and kind of just drive it up a little bit more, I think he could be a really strong asset for an NFL team.
Yeah, I saw a lot of hype about Zay Flowers coming into scouting, and he paid it off for me. Unlike one other guy who we'll be talking about soon. All right, Chase, you're number 5. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, my number 5, Kayshon Boutte himself. I remember there was talks that this dude was going to be the wide receiver 1 coming to this class like years ago. He was Jamar Chase 2.0, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not quite the case, but I still think he is a very talented receiver. Got a great, size combo with his athleticism. He can still move. I think he's very agile. When it comes to his catching ability, I think it's still good, maybe not elite, but once he has the ball in his hands, I think he can really do some damage. I really liked his ability to separate. I think downfield, he's someone that he can play a Jamar Chase type role at a much lower level, obviously, but like in that role for an offense as the number 2 guy instead of the number 1, I think that he could really have a lot of success for an NFL team.
Kayshon Boutte, Booty, whatever you want to say.
Booty.
One of the guys that had a disappointing combine compared to other guys like JSN that really shine on these on-field drills. Boutte did not do well on the vert, did not do well on the broad jump. A lot of people will look at the 4.67 40-yard dash that he had second. He had a 4.5 on his first one, so let's not pretend that he's a 4.67 receiver. Yes, he got that a second time, but not the case. I don't have Boutte that high, but I do have him at number 7. And the very last thing I said about him was that he's the first guy I'm actually happily surprised about. And analysis was that he just glides all over the field. Like, it looks effortless when he's out there running routes. I did feel like he lost some burst over the course of his college career with his injuries, but I thought he still had good top-end speed. He wasn't, the quickest guy, but top-end speed good. I thought he had solid strength, really nice routes, and above-average hands. I think this guy would be a really good wide receiver, too. Maybe he goes and joins up with his LSU teammate, Justin Jefferson, takes over that number 2 role from Adam Thielen.
I think that'd be a really good complimentary piece right there. I do like that fit. It would be annoying as a Lions fan, but as a fantasy player, I think that would be a good fit. And the final thing I want to say on him, I legitimately do think that if he were to play in a better passing offense and, of course, stay healthy, like that's always a factor. But if he played in a better passing offense these last year or two, I think he would have been looked at much differently, would have been viewed as a better prospect coming into this, because like LSU these last year or two, it's not been obviously what it was with Joe Burrow.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because in his final game with LSU this season, he broke off a fantastic touchdown, and he was really showing how good he is after the catch. And a lot of the fantasy community said, oh, there's Kayshon Boutte. That's the guy that we remember because it's been a while since we saw it. So really hoping that he can kind of bring back to life his career, because he does have talent. Number 5 is Xavier Hutchinson for me out of Iowa State. I just love the big man. He's a guy that he doesn't remind me up to the level of, say, like a Drake London, but could he be similar to a Michael Pittman? I think lesser scale, but I think, I think he's got good hands. He's a good mover for his size. He's super fluid and put together. A lot of these big guys, you'll see them, they're a little clunky, a little bit awkward looking as they're running. I don't think Xavier Hutchinson has that. Now, I don't think he does anything elite. I don't think he's like an elite spectacular catcher. I don't think he's an elite yards after catch guy. But I think he's very consistent and very good as that big-bodied receiver, and I think he's best served as a wide receiver too.
Yeah, I agree with that last part, especially in terms of the athletics. Just average to me, like average speed, average agility, just average athlete. But When it comes to his hands, I think they're very strong. When it comes to his route running, I think he's one of the better route runners in this class. I think he can separate, had very solid college production too. And he's a willing blocker. That's something that, you'd like to see, especially out of a guy that might not be your number one. If they're willing to kind of get a little dirty, help out in the run game, pass game, that's good to see. I think that he's maybe got some wide receiver one upside. Like he's got the size and build for it, but I think he's probably really relegated to that number two instead.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping for good things out of him because I think a lot of people also saw the likes of Michael Pittman and T. Higgins being in a similar category where they're kind of that fringe guy, and they were better. So like I said, fringe guy 1 to 2, you never really know. But they obviously shot up to being the number one guys. Colts, obviously, Michael Pittman's going to be that number one guy, but a lot of people see T. Higgins as being a number one guy if Jamar Chase wasn't there. I think that there could be that potential depending on the situation he lands himself in. But let's talk about your number 6.
So my number 6, Tank Dell out of Houston. Really, for me, the only downside for him is his size. Like he's obviously quite small. Like just if he could add some mass, I think it would really help him. But he is very dynamic. I don't think it's going to limit him being an outside receiver despite his size because he's got the speed to kind of go downfield. I think he would dominate in a slot role. I think he could be one of these elite slot receivers. And the league's finally starting to change. But some people, fans still think that, a slot receiver, he's a wide receiver 3. You shouldn't take him high. Like that's just not the case. Like we see so many slot receivers nowadays become such dominant players. We see so many dominant players go line up in the slot. So it's not a hindrance at all. The way that offense is run nowadays, especially with the RPOs coming in, it's stupid to not have a quality slot receiver. So to get Tank Dell as that type of guy, I think would be awesome because that athleticism combined with that short burst route running ability, I think he could be one of the league's premier slot guys.
Tank Dell, the guy I was talking about when it came to someone who's gotten a lot of hype pre-scouting that I've seen that just didn't really impress me. Definitely not as athletic as I thought he would be. And even with you talking about him, I'm not sure he's at that level. I think he's got that awesome shiftiness that you like to see, but a guy who's 5'8", 165 pounds, running a 4.49, again, 40 is not everything, but that's not good. Like, not impressive whatsoever. And if you're supposed to be a high-end athlete, you do better than that. But shifty, can make a man miss. I really like that. I thought at times he had inconsistent hands. Generally, they were pretty solid, but there were times where, I don't know if he was just trying to look to make the next man miss or whatever it might have been, but he's just dropping balls he shouldn't have. Also, don't think he has the size and strength to break a tackle if someone's got their hands on him. Now, if they don't yet, then he can make a man miss, but to actually break those tackles when they're already on him, not sure he's got that. But overall, I think he's a solid route runner as well. So, shifty guy, really small guy that's not as athletic as I would hope and can't really break tackles. So I have him as a late round 3 pick.
If you can get the ball to him, like 6 to 8 yards from line of scrimmage, I think he's got the legitimate ability every time to make that a 25, 30-yard play because of that shiftiness, because of how I think he sees the field. And maybe he won't break out of tackles as much as you want, but he will evade them. So I just think that's such a valuable piece to have with the way offenses are going nowadays.
Yeah, I don't know. I think just with everything combined, the size, the athletic profile at that size, and the ability to, make contested catches and all that, just didn't have it for me. That's why he's not.
I don't think the combine tells the story for his athleticism. It's sometimes some guys have good combines, some guys have bad combines. Sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it does matter. And I think this is a case where it probably doesn't matter. I think he just, might have underwhelmed. Maybe he wasn't, loose enough to run, whatever it might be. Cause we've seen guys like Isaiah Likely last year. He ran like a sub 5.40 and he played very strong, but played very well in his rookie year as a tight end. So I don't think it's the end all be all. I think he is going to end up probably playing better than what his 40 kind of ended up here.
My tape notes, not as athletic as I thought he would be. That was before the combine. So I think it shows on field. And But I was expecting high-end athleticism. That was before I obviously saw his 40-yard dash. So kind of just reassured where I personally was at. But let's talk about a guy that you're going to hate now. So, we'll go tit for tat. I'll hate on one of your guys. You can now hate on one of my guys. That Perfect. Being Rashee Rice out of SMU. Guy's a bigger receiver, 6'2", 203. I personally thought he was a little bit raw of a prospect. I think he needs work on his routes and his overall feet. I think also his hands can be inconsistent, but similar to Tank Dell, inconsistent, but generally I think they're solid overall. The thing that I loved about Rashee Rice is his strength and using that big frame to box out DBs. He's able to win those 50-50 balls because of his size, his strength, and his ability to position himself in the right way to go out and win those. I think that he is good after the catch. I don't think he's great by any means, but for a guy his size, I was taken off guard a little bit with how talented he was after the catch. Also, one thing that I saw, I don't remember what game it was, but there were 5 straight plays where he drew pass interference. And that kind of just shows how talented he is when it comes to boxing out the DBs and putting them in a position where, hey, he's either catching the ball or you're drawing a flag. And on 5 straight plays, he was able to draw pass interference. So I absolutely love that as well. Overall, like I mentioned, I think he's a little bit raw of a prospect. He really needs some work when it comes to routes. But if there's a guy that I want to take a shot on, and I'm confident in my coaching staff, I think it's Rashee Rice. I think he's got some really, really solid upside.
Maybe he is raw, or maybe he's just underwhelming. I think he's just underwhelming personally. Just didn't do much for me. I mean, solid overall speed combo and quick feet. I like that, but when it comes, terms to his blocking ability, I don't think really anything's there. Breaking tackles, kind of, doing damage in the open field, I think it's fine, but it's nothing special. Hands are fine. His college production was very strong. I'll give him that. He did put up some solid numbers at SMU, but I don't know. I think he's just kind of I don't think he's a dude. I think he's just kind of a guy. I have him as an earlier day 3 type of pick, and I don't know. I would prefer to go elsewhere. This might be some other team's cup of tea. Just not really mine.
That surprises me a little bit because I know with you, you're very athletic profile. You look at, speed and everything, but also you're a guy who likes size as well when they compare it with the athleticism. So it does surprise me a little bit that you have him so low, but when I compare the last 2 we've talked about, when we talk, do they have room for improvement and everything? I feel like Rashee Rice, as a younger player than Tank Dell, has that ability to grow in some areas where, they're a little bit more learning. Routes are a little bit easier learned than the likes of, being physical and having that strength. So, I think Rashee Rice has that upside.
And, maybe he does. I would still be willing to spend a draft pick on him, but where I'm willing to spend a pick, I think he's probably already gone. So I'm not going to, lose any sleep, whatever it might be, on missing out on him, because who knows? I could be wrong. He could be a fine number 2, but really probably a number 3 level type receiver for me. And in this draft, a number 3 level type receiver, I'm just going to take him in day 3 based on what else is around.
Not much, though. Not much is around.
No, I'm not necessarily talking receivers. I'm talking about the other position groups in general.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I feel you. All right, let's talk about your number 7. I believe that's Dontavion Wicks.
Yeah, and, it wasn't really expecting it. I didn't know a ton about him. I've seen him play, but just didn't really expect anything crazy. But I watching the tape and, kind of seeing the athletic profile combined with the size, it's a similar type thing to what's his nuts we just talked about. Rashee Rice, similar size, similar athleticism, but to me, he looked better. I thought he had better hands, thought he had better break tackle ability. I thought he had better route running by a little bit. I thought his, rack ability was just stronger, release. College production was very good too. So I thought he was just overall better. As my notes say, good size, elite playmaking ability, and his one full season as a primary target, he averaged 20 yards per catch, which is just impeccable. Solid hands, good route running. I think he'll be a menace after the catch. Just a really good. I think he could be like a really, really, really good number 2 type receiver with that, big playability.
Yeah, and I've got Dontavian Wicks actually tied for my number 10. I've got Josh Downs, Dontavian Wicks, and Bryce Ford Wheaton all with the same exact grade. I have them all as late round 3 guys. Wicks is a smooth route runner. I think very similar to Kayshon Boutte. He glides around the field with really good speed. The one thing that was concerning for me is you said solid hands. I thought that was by far his biggest issue because he led the FBS in drops last year while healthy. He only played 8 total games, because he left the season a little bit early with, I believe it was injury, but he led the FBS in drops, and there was a lot of drops that I saw on his tapes. So I think that this guy can be a really solid receiver after the catch if he gets the ball in his hands, but will he consistently do that? I don't know. I mean, when you're leading the FBS in drops, that's not necessarily a good thing.
And that's why I said solid, because I just think it's going to take a little more focus and not just thinking about what's next. As you're catching the ball, you can't be like, all right, now where do I run as it's coming into your hands? It's got to come into your hands, and then you think, all right, where do I go? And I think it's just a little more focus on that, and he's going to take that really big step and be awesome in the role that I expect him to take. But I think that's something that can be coached, and if you get a good receivers coach, like everything else is there.
I hope so, because we saw Laquan Treadwell, another guy who had the case of the drops at the college level and really couldn't put it together at the next level here in the NFL. And I think we're starting to get to the point where we kind of agree a little bit more on the players. There's a little bit of differences. Like overall, I like Dontavian Wicks. I think he can be a good player, but there is that big concern for me. But I think we're starting to come a little bit closer when it comes to our wide receivers.
For sure.
And as I say that, let's talk about a receiver you probably don't like.
Yeah.
But my alum, Michigan State, Jaden Reed, this is a guy that I personally thought, and I have it in my notes, and you're going to hate it, and I love that, is if people think Tank Dell can be good at the next level, there's no shot Jaden Reed can't be good at the next level. Fast, twitchy wide receiver, a good route runner, great after the catch. Hands can be a little inconsistent, can't lie about that. He's not effective in the blocking game, but he was a punt returner for a reason. This guy is fantastic after the catch. I thought I saw a lot of Mecole Hardman out of this guy. I think he can be a dynamic wide receiver 3 that can be a little change of pace, and he can be an also special teamers as well.
So not the same build, obviously, but I think he's more of like a Khalif Raymond, where good special teamer. When you need him to step up, he can. Khalif Raymond had a very good year for the Lions this year, and I think that's what Jaden Reed can do, because I do think he is very good after the catch, and he can create some separation at moments. I don't think he's necessarily a lead at it, but he can definitely create some separation. Not a complete speedster like you might hope for when I was kind of watching, and the bad QB play at Michigan State definitely didn't help his case. So if he gets better quarterback play, maybe he looks better. I don't know. It just underwhelmed a little bit, so I think he's more in line of it's a different position, different type player too, but like Kenny Nwangwu last year went in the 4th round, and I was like, oh, that's kind of surprising, but it was mostly to be like that returner and then play when needed. I think Jaden Reed will be a similar type of thing.
I think you get a guaranteed top 8 level returner out of Jaden Reed as he comes in, and I think he's going to be I don't think he's going to come in year 1 and have a ton of production, but I think that if you're weak in the wide receiver core, he can easily step in, be a wide receiver 3, give you some production at the NFL level.
Yeah, and just maybe, I don't know.
All right, who do you have next?
I got Bryce Ford Wheaton, baby.
All right, Bryce Ford.
Yeah, Bryce Ford Wheaton sits at my number 9 spot. And I'm going to be honest, I really did not know very much about this guy. By that, I mean, I didn't know anything about this guy until I first watched him. And really, when he first kind of came in at the combine, I was like, all right, I got to watch this guy. Saw the numbers that he put up, saw his athletic profile. Big body, great speed, can fly down the field. Looked awesome on tape. Really, I think it's the same exact player as like DK Metcalf. I was reading something, I think it's on CBS Sports, and it was saying that his 40 time combined with his size ability, like his size not ability, his size is only 3 players had that combination in the last, like, I think it's 10 years. It was him, it was DK Metcalf, and it was Tariq Woolen. So 2 TLC Hawks, funny enough, but 2 guys who have, I'd say, overplayed their draft position. Definitely Tariq Woolen because he was taken like a 5th round pick, and DK Metcalf was very end of the 2nd round, and he's played above that. So I think it could be the same type of thing here for Ford Wheaton. Where is he going to end up? I don't know. He probably ends up late day 2, early day 3, and I think whoever's getting him is going to get a steal just because that size and speed combo is just so deadly.
Yeah, so I think that I don't necessarily know if it did translate to tape. In my opinion, I saw his 40-yard dash, and it was fantastic, of course. But when looking at the tape, I thought he was great when it comes to lawn speed, and we saw that with his 40-yard dash. But I think that he's more of a speeding train rather than the Flash. I think it takes him a little bit to actually get up to that final gear, and I think that's where I kind of questioned his release, and I questioned his route running. I didn't see that quick burst off the line. I didn't see that quick burst when it comes to making routes. But I think he's a very interesting prospect because of how big he is, because of that top gear speed that he has. One thing I saw when it comes to his actual like receiving ability, the 50-50 balls were so weird. They were so inconsistent. Some of them he would make like just the most insane play you ever see, like stuff only Mike Evans and the top spec catchers, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, only those type of guys that can make. But then the next time he can't even track the ball right. And I'm just so confused on all of that. But end all be all, I've got him with the same grade as Josh Downs, Dontavian Wicks, and himself. And I said the raw size and athleticism is worth taking a shot on this player.
Yeah, if he goes in a day 2 pick, I think he's going to be someone who shoots up like dynasty rookie boards pretty quickly because of how his combine went, and people are going to start watching and seeing him go that early. Be like, oh my God, here we go. I kind of hope he slips into early day 3 because we still see receivers of any draft capital get a lot of run, where we've seen running backs in the past, maybe day 3 on, even sometimes even round 3 guys don't get as much leeway. Receivers basically always do because of how much an elite receiver helps and how many you need on a team. So I think basically no matter where he goes, as long as it's an opportunity that he can play, I think he's going to kind of be a surprise rookie this year.
Yeah, and I'll say anyone in our Dynasty League, feel free to try to get him in the 2nd round because he won't be going in the 1st. It's mine.
Yeah. What if he goes like 8th overall to the like Kansas City Chiefs and say he's our wide receiver 1?
Then I might have to take the 12th pick and use it on him. But
because that's obviously not going to happen.
Yeah, but even if he goes round 3, like early round 3, like pick 67 or something, I'm still not taking him. I just don't really want wide receivers in this draft class. So,
and fair enough, I guess. But in your league, especially where you have all those picks, if you start 3 receivers and have 2 flex, you kind of need receivers.
I've got 3 already, and I plan on taking at least 3. But
there you go.
Maybe 4. We'll see.
Ooh.
All right. My final guy, my 10th ranked. I've mentioned him twice now, tied with Dontavian Wicks and Bryce Ford Wheaton. He just got a slight nod. Not even really a slight nod. It's just that's where he ended up in my Excel sheet. Is Josh Downs. Now, Josh Downs really disappointed me when I was watching his first little bit of tape. As I continued watching, it got a little bit better, and then at the combine, I really liked what I saw there. I think the one thing that Josh Downs has down, get it? His hands. I think his hands are fantastic. I think they could be top 3 in this class. He did not drop a lot, if any, when I was watching his tape. But my biggest issue with him was all of the extra movement. When he was releasing off the line of scrimmage, he had to really dip down his shoulders before he got off the line. While running the routes, he will take a bigger step for that plant foot, and that just gives it away. That gives it away to the DB. Like, what are we doing here? And then also, when it comes to catching the football, the guy always has to jump. Whether it's a little bunny hop or, a long jumping stride, he's always going to be in the air when he catches the football, and that is one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to receivers. Keep your momentum going forward. You don't need to get off the ground. So Josh Downs, another one of these guys, I've got a late day 3 grade on him, or a late round 3 grade on him. I don't love him by any means, but I think by far his best attribute is his hands.
Yeah, he's the first guy I have as a day 3 pick for wide receivers. Funny enough, it's just like the hands are the only thing he has going for him for me. Like, yeah, he can move like fine downfield, but a lot of things that you mentioned, I kind of echo similar sentiments. He's my wide receiver 12, and it's weird. Like his yards, like his yards per like route, yards per catch, like they were a little like underwhelming given the type of player you think he would be. So when you look at that and how that translates to the NFL, might be a little concerning. If he can be used as a slot guy just because of sure-handedness and you use him solely downfield, like that might be fine. But I don't think he's going to be like a value for an NFL offense. I think he's just going to be like he could be useful.
Yeah, I agree. And kind of just shows where this draft class is when it comes to wide receivers. Because Chase had him as his 12, I had him as my 10, and we're both talking about him like he'll be a guy, not the guy, but a guy.
Yeah, that's it is pretty fair. It's just he's just a guy. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah, so unfortunately not the best wide receiver group coming out this draft class, but the next group we are going to be looking at is going to be the tight ends, and this is where this draft class yet again shines. The quarterbacks, very solid this year, a lot better than last year. The running backs, fantastic. Next level, one of the best we've seen in the last decade, and that includes that draft class that had Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt. This could be another one of those classes when it comes to running back. Wide receiver, not really there. But tight end, another one of those classes that could really see 4, 5, maybe even 6 starters out of this class. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. I know Chase is too. We're also going to be talking about some free agency next week. It's going to be a good overall episode.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right, well, that's going to do it for the show. I want to thank you so much for coming out and giving it a listen. If you want to stay up to date with all that we do, you can follow us on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. That's, again, on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. If you're watching on YouTube, if you could, please give us a like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to turn on notifications, and let us know down in those comments what you think the top 10 wide receivers are in this draft class. Do you agree with Chase? Do you agree with me? Do you think both of us are stupid? Let us know down in the comments. If you're listening on a podcast platform, if you could, please give us a 5-star rating and a follow. We would absolutely love you for it. Thanks so much for coming out. And as always, we're not professionals.